Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Marjorie Taylor Greene just shuts down Jasmine Crockett with this simple but brilliant speech about what's actually happening with the Department of Government Efficiency. Let's dive in.
Americans are looking for help. But instead of offering it to them, the Republicans have unleashed the most aggressive attack on the working class families in American history. And they have been excited to do so. In fact, they are here today arguing to make all the chaos, confusion, and destruction caused by Doge permanent. They want hungry kids to be permanent. They want sicker Americans to be permanent. They want homeless veterans to be permanent, shuttered hospitals to be permanent, disrupted Social Security benefits to be permanent. They sold out their constituents to give permanent tax breaks to billionaires, and they're doing it. And now they want to have a victory lap. The reason that people like me say things like y'all are in a cult is because somehow people are abdicating their duties and abdicating the very people that put them into office. But I got 30 seconds. They've allowed this administration to steal congressionally approved money for cancer research and food delivery to vulnerable communities. They've allowed Elon Musk to infiltrate your medical records and banking data. They've allowed this administration to ignore court rulings, and now Republicans are here patting themselves on the back, literally arguing to make this chaos permanent. So Americans are going to continue to live through chaos and destruction that has been occurring ever since he swore in January. And I hope y'all remember who caused this, because it wasn't
the
just
gentlelady's time has expired.
Also the congressional Republicans.
The gentlelady's time has expired. Right. I now recognize myself for closing remarks. The American people gave President Trump a mandate to drain the swamp, and they expect us to deliver on that promise. We need to be brutally honest about how this massive debt came to be in the first place. It originated from Congress and elected presidential administrations for decades. We are grateful that President Trump's Doge team has already identified at least $180 billion in federal savings. However, without legislative action, these hard-won cuts could be reversed by the stroke of a pen with a future administration. After all, we listen to Democrats every single day make fun of, attack, and criticize the efforts of Doge. They don't take it serious. They want government to be bigger and bigger and bigger until we completely collapse. Congress must use every tool at our disposal to make the hard work of the Trump administration permanent. 2 weeks ago, House Republicans took the first step in codifying the Doge cuts by passing the White House's $9.4 billion rescissions package. This is only the first step. The Senate must immediately pass these cuts and send them to President Trump's desk. We must continue to codify every penny of Doge cuts through rescissions and the appropriations process. This is our mandate. This is our duty. The legislative branch can't sit on the sidelines. In this subcommittee, we will fight the war on waste shoulder to shoulder with President Trump. We've held hearings exposing billions in improper payments, corrupt NGOs pushing destructive policies, and taxpayer-funded media like NPR and PBS that serve elite interests over the public good. We've uncovered shocking examples like USAID funneling money to undermine U.S. interest abroad, lavish spending on empty federal buildings, and so-called nonprofits bankrolling illegal immigration. Today, we heard more egregious examples of Americans' hard-earned tax dollars being abused to promote genital mutilation of children, fund the Green New Deal scam, fund terrorists overseas, and fund hundreds of billions of improper payments. The American people overwhelmingly support the cuts. And I don't know what faulty polls my Democrat colleagues are using to back their claims saying otherwise, but I've never heard of any legitimate poll that adds up to 110%, like the one on their poster that was displayed here today. What a joke. What a pathetic example. My God. Maybe they should support spending a little more on teaching actual mathematics in the classrooms and a little less on seeking to advance racial justice in mathematics like the National Science Foundation grant. Regardless, we know the American people are behind the Doge efforts, and we know the American people don't believe stupid fake polls that have math that make no sense. Exposing this waste and abuse is only half the battle. To win this war, we need to make sure these cuts aren't just temporary. That means passing laws to streamline agencies, eliminate redundant programs, and give the president the authority to fire bureaucrats who don't do their jobs, the same bureaucrats that go ahead and give out these grants that mutilate children, gives money to USAID to do regime change in foreign countries, and so many more stupid, horrible things that the American people don't want to spend their money on.
I usually want to piggyback immediately after what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say, but I need to deal with what Jasmine Crockett was talking about in her little speech there. First off, the abdication of your voters and your responsibilities, that means that you're usually leaving your job. It would be abandoning, first off. So, right ballpark, but I think there's a better word out there. Thesaurus might actually help here. But a better point that I really want to deal with is the idea that, Doge has abandoned the middle class. It has abandoned the working class. I'm sorry. I think the biggest abandonment of the middle class was a ridiculous spending bill that did nothing to get the economy back on track and then pushed us over a cliff, essentially raising inflation to a point that we're barely dealing with that problem properly over 4 years later. Joe Biden wanted a Barack Obama-style piece of legislation, and he got it for some terrible reason. He got it, and because there were the Senate was split 50-50 through reconciliation, Kamala Harris became that extra vote, and then the Biden administration was able to get everything that they wanted, from ridiculous federal positions in our judiciary that are now gumming up all of the works for a new administration who's trying to clean up the mess. Then you've got, of course, the inflationary problems that came along with that spending bill, and which hurt the American middle class more than anything else. There's a reason that pretty much the number one and number two issues in the last election were the price of eggs and making America healthy again. Neither of which Jasmine Crockett has bothered to bring up in her little screed. And then I think the whole idea that she's trying to tie all these other issues that, because Doge cut a contract, you won't get your Social Security. You won't get your Medicare. You won't get certain things to help you out. The NOAA might lose some ability to track a storm cell or two. I'm going to be 100% honest. We've got multiple stations across the nation. We have got YouTube channels dedicated to weather. I'm sorry. What are you complaining about here? I think what she's complaining about is this whole idea that, bureaucracy is a good thing. Why is it getting cut? Well, because our bureaucracy is bloated. Because we have contracts that we constantly give out to organizations, not just in the military-industrial complex, which we haven't even gotten to yet. I can't wait to see what happens when Doge gets their fingers on that little project. We've started off with the federal discretionary spending, and now they're going to start looking into the defense spending fairly soon. And we're starting to look at these contracts and go, okay, you have not been efficient, we're going to cut your contract. You have been ridiculously bloated, we're going to cut your contract. That's going to cause a few problems here and there, but you know what we have? We have this cool thing called the internet. We have this cool thing called social media. We have this cool thing that can allow for more transparency to see where we can actually start solving some of these issues from a legislative perspective and not just an executive. But Jasmine Crockett doesn't want these problems solved. She wants the bloat and the sludge to continue to pile up. She wants our bureaucracy stronger than ever, when the reality is we need to take as much power from these bureaucrats as we can and give them back to Congress. And people like Jasmine Crockett don't want to do the extra work and instead want to give it over to the hands of the bureaucrat class. This is half of what we mean when we call DC a deep state-seated swamp. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about these shadowy backroom deals, although that can definitely be a part of the conversation. We're really talking about getting a hold of the amount of people that seem to magically have jobs year after year, even though they're not producing as much as, what is being spent upon them in salary. Jasmine Crockett wants to defend that because it means that she gets to cede responsibility away from Congress and then give it to the presidency or give it to the courts. And that way Congress doesn't have to deal with those issues and they can just argue about where the transportation money goes, who to bomb next, even if they ever get to that point. And just as importantly, continue to let things just go steady as normal instead of doing their jobs and actually ensuring that they're being good stewards of your tax dollars. Marjorie Taylor Greene gives a great defense of the Department of Government Efficiency, not only because we're saving your taxpayer money, we're also taking a good hard look at where it's being spent and then going, these little side quests of having puppet shows in Botswana probably isn't a good use of taxpayer dollars. It might give a few Democrat cousins of some Democrat officials an easy job for a couple of years, but I don't think spending a couple $100,000 on those little projects here and there are good stewardships of the American taxpayer dollar. That's what DOGE is looking at cutting. That's why we need the Department of Government Efficiency, and Marjorie Taylor Greene ends on a great note that the Senate needs to codify these cuts as soon as they can, because who knows what happens in the midterms, who knows what's going to happen in 2028, and who knows how we're going to deal with our federal deficit and debt problems that will continue to pile up if we don't take care of business now. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.